There's a Love Inspired Suspense newsletter that goes out to all of us authors that write for them. And they had an editor's wish list on there. The things that they have on the editor's wish list are Amish heroes and heroines or Amish country settings, Western settings, cowboys and rancher heroes, rodeo themed stories, evocative outdoor settings, for example, stories set in Alaska, deserts, wilderness, mountains. And then this last one really surprised me, college campus settings slash dark academia stories.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Writer's Day podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I started this podcast for you, people who like to listen to published authors, best-selling, award-winning published authors talk about their books and their writing journeys. So if you like what you hear today, head over to YouTube and subscribe. Follow me on Spotify and iHeartRadio and leave a review or a comment. I love to engage with listeners, so let me know what you think of today's episode. And head over to my website to sign up for my newsletter, learn about my upcoming projects especially for 2026. I've got more suspense novels to release and a dragon book and another coloring book. So sign up for my newsletter at artbyruth.com today. Carol J. Post is an award-winning Christian romance and Christian romance suspense author who crafts her stories in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. Oh, I love North Carolina. And she's with us today to chat about what it takes to write for Love Inspired Suspense. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to best-selling author Carol J. Post. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited to be talking with Carol J. Post today about Love Inspired and about her upcoming book. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. Well, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and then we'll chat about writing.
Okay, great. I write Christian romantic suspense, mostly for Love Inspired Suspense. I lived in Florida most of my life and then moved to southwestern North Carolina 4 years ago. So we are enjoying our first cold snap today. It hasn't quite hit freezing yet from below. So we're still sitting at around 31 degrees. So sometimes in the middle of the winter, I kind of miss Florida, but not the rest of the year. And I love camping. My husband and I do a lot of camping. All of our research trips, we pull the camper, and fortunately, our cats love camping because they always go with us. And I also enjoy playing the piano. Sometimes my musical hubby and I write songs together. I do the
Oh,
lyrics and he does the music. And I think that's about it.
wow, that's wonderful. And what part of North Carolina? You said Western. Is that Charlotte or Asheville?
Um, we're actually 5 miles from the Georgia line and
Ooh.
15 miles from the Tennessee line. So we're kind of right in the southwest corner.
Okay, yeah, beautiful. We used to live in North Carolina a long time ago, back in the late 80s, early 90s. We were
Whereabouts?
my husband was in the Marine Corps, so we were at Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station, just in Havelock, outside of Havelock, North Carolina. So that was the eastern part of the state. We were on the eastern shore. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was so beautiful. Oh, I envy you so much. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful this time of year.
Yes, we do love the mountains.
Wonderful. I'll have to come visit you someday.
Yes, for sure.
Well, so did you feel like you would always be a writer since you were a little girl, or did it just
No,
happen?
actually, I always loved to write. I was one of these weird kids that actually enjoyed doing book reports and research papers and stuff, but I never considered writing for publication until back in the early to mid 90s. My husband and I were team couples for Marriage Encounter, and we used to do these marriage enrichment retreats.
Mm.
And where we would, there were four of us couples that would do these retreats, and the one couple was the head team couple, and we would always write our talks and submit to them. And when I sent her my second talk, she said, "This is the first time I've ever gotten a talk in 25 years of doing this that I have not needed edits." And so that put the idea in my head, hmm, I might be able to be a writer. And so that's actually what got me started.
Wow, that's fascinating. I remember those marriage encounters. I think my husband and I went to one when we were first married. That is so neat. Well, that must have been a nice pat on the back for you to get that back without any edits.
Definitely. But I was thinking, I've thought different times if it weren't for that one experience, I don't know that I ever would have considered writing.
Oh, that is so neat. It's a calling, don't you think?
Pardon me?
It's a calling, don't you think?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's interesting the way God orchestrates things and just opens those doors.
Well, so today you wanted to share with us a little bit about what it's like to write for Love Inspired and maybe give us some tips for those of us, like myself, who want to maybe send a story, a proposal to Love Inspired. What tips do you have for us?
Okay. Well, I do have some advice for anybody who's wanting to write for Love Inspired, specifically for Love Inspired Suspense, because that's the line that I've written for. I'm actually working on my 20th book for them. My first one was published in January of 2013, so it's been a little while. There's been changes through the years and all. But first and foremost, I always encourage people that if you want to write for Love Inspired Suspense, to read lots of Love Inspired Suspense books and just kind of see how the authors handle the suspense, the romance arcs, the character arcs, the spiritual arcs. It can be a little tricky getting all of that worked into 55,000 words because that's what our limit is. And you can go a little over, but they don't want you to go too much over. So it's you got a lot to pack into lower word count. And what I did, I actually, back when I was decided that that's who the publisher I wanted to write for, I actually created a spreadsheet and put in, like, as I was reading, noted how the author was handling the suspense, the romance, the characters, the spiritual arc. And I did spreadsheets for each of the books I was reading. And I know this kind of sounds over the top, but I'm like extremely analytical and a little bit OCD. And so this actually was, worked really well for me. So it really helped me to get a good grasp on the structure of the Love Inspired Suspense books, which helped me in being able to craft my own. And so I don't recommend that for everybody because most people aren't as into spreadsheets and stuff as what I am. So I understand that. But as far as the suspense, Love Inspired Suspense, their books are very high tension with really intense situations. There's danger all the way through. You've got to have the heroine, or sometimes the hero, often it's the heroine, but you've got to have the characters in danger right from the first scene, and you've got to keep that tension up all the way through the book. And so they say that the romance and suspense is 50-50, but you're working in the romance and letting the characters fall in love without slowing the action too much. So I'm usually good at having the suspense as I'm writing my first draft. I've got the suspense nailed, but then I have to go back through and make sure that I'm really working in the romance thoroughly because they do want that 50-50 balance. And then as far as the romance, and this really goes for any romance novels, you want the romance to be some real obstacle that is preventing this hero and heroine from being together. Obviously, it can't just be a simple misunderstanding where if they just sat down and talked about it, they could work it all out. And so there's got to be something, pretty concrete there preventing them from being together. And then, as far as the spiritual arc, by the end of the book, both of the characters, both hero and heroine, have to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Sometimes both of them will be Christians when the book starts. Most of mine, I usually have one character that's not a Christian and one that is. And the way we handle the spiritual arcs and everything in Love Inspired Suspense is we don't want anything to sound preachy. You're getting the message across through the struggles of the characters, their thoughts, the events they're going through, and all. And so, like an example, a hero that can't forgive himself, so he's sure that there's no way God could forgive him. So throughout the story, then he comes to realize that you can't out sin God's grace. And then another example is like a heroine who's angry with God over a tragic event in her life. And through the story, she comes to realize that God can redeem even the bad things that happen to us. And we never will grow or find peace by hanging on to anger and resentment. And another thing that I advise people for in getting in with Love Inspired or Love Inspired Suspense, and actually a lot of the publications, if you can go to a writers' conference where the editors that you want to pitch to are taking pitches, that's a really good way to get in because, like, for example, I went to ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers Conference in September. And the Tina James, the executive editor for Love Inspired, she was there and she took pitches. And generally, when you pitch an editor or agent at a conference, they will usually ask for something. I mean, it may just be a synopsis and first chapter. They may ask for 3 chapters. They may ask for a full manuscript. But whatever you send, when you put that it is requested material, it automatically goes to the top of the slush pile. And so on there, when you read Harlequin's guidelines and things, it says that it usually takes about 12 weeks for them to get to a submission, but that doesn't hold true for when you've pitched an editor in person like that. You're put to the top. So that's always a good way. If you check the Christian Writers Conferences and look and see, because you can, they'll usually have on there which editors, which agents are going to be there. And you can look and see if Love Inspired, Love Inspired Suspense, if they're going to be at that particular conference taking pitches. And then I think the another thing I wanted to mention is when you submit, if you get a rejection letter, if it's just a form rejection, that doesn't help you a whole lot. But a lot of times they'll give you at least a couple of sentences about why they are rejecting it. And if it's something doable and something that, yeah, I see what they're saying, I think this is something I can fix, then by all means, go ahead and try and then resubmit it. Sometimes you might look at it and go, oh, this would just be too much. It'd be better for me to just start with a different story. When I first submitted and I got a rejection letter, and it wasn't a form one, it was where it was actually specific to my submission. And they said there were pacing issues and there was something, I can't remember how they worded it, but it was something about characterization. And so I had asked some of the writers in my writers group that I belonged to at the time, and several were published. And we even had a couple of New York Times best-selling authors and, people that had been at it a long time. And so I showed them my rejection letter and got advice. And they were like, this is probably something, it'll involve a lot of rewriting, but it is something that you can probably do and resubmit. And so I did that. I went ahead and rewrote the book. And then I met with, that was actually, I resubmitted it. And I think I mentioned that I had submitted it before and that this was the advice they had given, and I had completely rewritten it, taking their advice. And so I ended up getting an revise and resubmit. And so then I did that, and there was a writers conference in between there. It was Romance Writers of America. And I went ahead and set up an appointment since I hadn't heard back yet. It was still, it was just a few weeks and I hadn't heard back yet. So I went ahead and um, made an appointment with the Love Inspired Suspense editor. And so I had told her that I actually have something under consideration right now. And so she ended up calling me, literally the call. When they talk about getting the call, she actually called me on the phone and said that she wanted, they were going to accept it. And so it went from the rejection letter with just a couple of sentences
Mm.
to a revise and resubmit letter to a phone call.
Mm.
And so that was how that played out. So it would be nice if you could just submit something and get an acceptance, but a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
no,
times
no,
it
no.
doesn't play it
That's
doesn't
not
play out that way.
realistic. Yeah, that's not
Exactly,
realistic.
exactly. Now, I wanted to give a little bit of insider tips here.
Hmm.
There's a Love Inspired Suspense newsletter that goes out to all of us authors that write for them, and the one that they sent us, I think it was just last week, and they had an editor's wish list on there, and the things that they have on the editor's wish list are Amish heroes and heroines or Amish country settings, Western settings, cowboys and rancher heroes, rodeo themed stories, evocative outdoor settings, for example, stories set in Alaska, deserts, wilderness, mountains. And then this last one really surprised me because I've never even read anything like this. They have college campus settings slash dark academia stories. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm not even really, I've never read anything in that subgenre before. So,
That sounds really new. Yeah, I hadn't
yes,
seen that before. Hmm.
yes, yep, yeah, that was kind of interesting. And then they had a list of popular tropes, and that's protecting babies or children in danger, secret babies, cold case, kidnappings, witness protection, undercover heroes or heroines, law enforcement characters, hidden or mistaken identities, and working dogs. And the working dogs can be search and rescue or, the police canines. I'm actually, the story that I'm working on right now is a cadaver dog. It's the
Mm.
first time I've done one of those. The last story that I just finished was a canine explosives or Coast Guard explosives detection dog.
Okay.
So they say when you can put a dog on the cover in a vest, it really helps to sell books.
Yes. People love
Yeah.
dogs and they love it when there's an Amish on there, an Amish girl, and they love it when there's a little kid on there.
Yes, for sure. And then something that was kind of interesting, they had a couple of things listed for less popular themes. And it's interesting because they're both things I've done before. The first they listed was coastal or tropical settings. And
Hmm.
then the second thing they listed was stalker stories.
Oh.
And so I have a series of 5 books, but they're older that's actually set in Cedar Key, Florida, and which is very much a coastal, tropical setting. And my very first book with them back in 2013 was a stalker story. And but
Ah,
they've stopped doing those and they're not as crazy about the coastal settings anymore.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is so helpful. The thing that I have questions about, and maybe my listeners do too, is when I went to the Faith, Hope, and Love conference and one of the Love Inspired Suspense editors gave us a talk there. She had mentioned that they were looking for amateur sleuth stories, not necessarily cozy mysteries, but kind of like Murders Only in the Building, that story that's on Hulu, where it's just amateurs solving crimes, and in that story, it's very comical, very slapstick kind of storyline. So she was saying they were looking for some amateur sleuth stories. I wasn't sure if you had heard that or not.
No, I haven't heard that. Now, was
Okay.
that specifically Love Inspired Suspense or
Yes, it was Love Inspired Suspense editor. She was going through the list like you did of what they're looking for, their wish list. And everything you
interesting?
said was there except the college setting. That was new to me. I hadn't heard that before. And then when during that time she had mentioned Amateur Sleuth, but that movie or that show on Hulu, Murders Only in the Building, was very popular at the time. This was about 2 years
Uh,
ago. So maybe it's
oh,
maybe
okay.
it's not as popular, so maybe they don't want it. But I'll check. And listeners, if you're interested, be sure and check their website. They have the wish list on there. Love Inspired Suspense is on there, and they update that wish list all the time. So check it.
Yes. Yeah. And also for submitting, like I had to look up, I know when I submitted my first book, I had to submit the full manuscript. And of
Mhm.
course, now as far as already being an established author with them, the way my process is I will get an idea. I usually do a 3 book contract and I'll get an idea and then my editor will actually let me email her and say, hey, what do you think of a story where, this is kind of what the suspense is centered around? What do you think of this? And she'll either say, yeah, that sounds good. That's worth developing. Or no, we actually aren't interested in that. And so
Okay.
it saves me a lot of time as far as putting a bunch of effort into doing a proposal on something that they're not even going to be interested in. So
Yes.
that's a that's a major time saver for me. And then when we do get to the point where we're ready for the proposal, what the proposal consists of is 3 chapters and a synopsis for the first book, a detailed synopsis. The second book is a somewhat detailed synopsis, and then the third book is a less detailed synopsis. And when being under contract with Harlequin, and I'm not sure about other publishers, but they will ask, so what dates do you want as far as the deadlines, because once they accept the proposal, then you've got the full manuscript for the first book, the proposal for the second, the full for the second, the proposal for the third, and the full for the third. And they usually try to space the fulls about 5 months apart. That gives them a chance to look over the proposal, get back with you, and all that. So even if you can write a little faster than that, they usually try to space them out about 5 months apart, because then it doesn't put us, much pressure time wise on them as far as getting back on proposals and things. And so that's pretty much how the
Wow.
process goes once you
Wow.
start writing for them.
Thank you so much for that information. It's got me excited. I'm going to try next year to write a story. I did last year, it just didn't work out. They didn't take it,
Mhm.
but that's okay. I got a lot of great
Yeah.
feedback from authors who are with Love Inspired Suspense. And so, and I'm going to take your advice and go next year and try again. That's all you can do is try again, right?
Yep, that's it. That's it. Yep, you just that's something that I know when I started, I didn't know any other authors, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that rejection was all part of the process. And I literally quit like twice and just stopped writing because of getting rejected, because I just wasn't used to that. I mean, I've always been an overachiever, and I wasn't used to failure. So I just
It
had no
stings.
clue.
Yeah, I gotta admit it stings, and that one hurt because I had three different Love Inspired Suspense authors helping me and coaching me through
Oh,
and critiquing, and they all kept saying, "Yeah, this is great. Work on this, work on that." And so I was super excited, and the editor read my proposal and wanted to see the chapter, so I was super excited. But then
yeah.
they said nope. And I asked her, "Do you want me to make tweaks to this story?" And she said, "No, go ahead and just send us something else next time." And I
Oh,
thought, okay,
man.
so that's okay, but I'm going to self-publish that story because like I said, I had three different authors tell me it's a good story. So I'm going to self-publish that one and then try again
Right.
with the new story. But tell us though about this new release, Detecting Deadly Threats. And listeners, it's a canine search and rescue, so there is a dog with a vest on the cover.
Yes, this one is set in the town of Ridgely, Tennessee. It's a tiny town near Reelfoot Lake in the northwest corner of the state. It's actually, I wanted to do something with an earthquake, and you don't associate earthquakes with Tennessee, but this part of Tennessee is in the New Madrid seismic zone, which is the most active seismic zone east of the Rocky Mountains. We actually here in Western North Carolina, we actually have regular earthquakes, but they're too minor to feel. And so when I went to do this one, there's an earthquake happens in the very first scene, and the heroine owns a jewelry store with an apartment above, and so the earthquake brings the building down on top of her, and the hero, who has just moved there and is actually renting the apartment above her store, he's of course got the search and rescue dog, so he's the one who finds her and rescues her from the rubble. And but it was funny. I did all this research on, what does an earthquake feel like? What does an earthquake sound like? And all of this stuff. And then about 2 months after I turned my book in, my husband and I are sitting in the living room on a Saturday morning. We're having our devotions, and all of a sudden, there's something that sounds like thunder, but it just keeps going and going and going and getting louder and louder. And then the house start shaking, and you can hear the upper floor creaking and stuff. I
Oh.
thought we were under attack. He right away thought earthquake, but I ran outside looking for a mushroom cloud. I mean, I thought sure we had been attacked, but it was actually a 4.1 on the Richter scale, and the epicenter was 30 miles from us. So I actually got to experience my first earthquake. And if it would have happened a couple months sooner, I could have saved myself the research.
Well, praise God, it wasn't as bad as what your character Lauren went through, and the whole building
Yes,
didn't collapse on you. But I think that's
exactly.
interesting. With Love Inspired, you suspense, you have to put them in danger right away. So she narrowly escapes a kidnapping attempt, and
Yes.
then she endures an earthquake. So yeah, that's definitely Love Inspired suspense.
Yes, yep. And then there's the constant threats, throughout and
Mm,
not knowing who's after her. She, as you know, her brother had been in trouble and she thought he was all straightened out and everything good
mm,
from had really turned his life around. And so she had helped him get established and everything with a job and different things. And he was actually in the building at the time it collapsed, and he died. And so she
okay.
doesn't know what happened when, because as she's being held up and abducted, a second masked gunman comes in and tries to stop the first guy, and that was actually the second one is actually her brother. And so she's like, okay, he was trying to save her or keep this guy from kidnapping her, but he had a mask and a gun, so he had to have been up to no good. But with him having been killed, she doesn't know what he got involved in
Mm,
or the people after her, something to do with a mess that he had gotten involved in, or she's also an amateur photographer. And so she was in the park across the street taking pictures at lunchtime shortly before this happened. So she doesn't know if she captured something on her camera that they're after. So
wow.
throughout, her and the hero are trying to figure out who's after her and why.
Well, that sounds like an excellent story full of tension and danger. Perfect for lovers of love-inspired suspense books about canine search and rescue. Well, Carol, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much. You've given us a lot of valuable information. I'm super excited to give it a shot and try another proposal to Love Inspired Suspense. And so
Well,
thank you again. And remember, listeners, Detecting Deadly Threats from Love Inspired Suspense releases December 30th, and you can pre-order it right now. I'm going to read my copy because you sent me a paperback. Yeah.
yes.
I'm going to read that. But everybody else, you can go pre-order your copy. So Carol, thank you. I know you're super busy, so I appreciate you taking time out to help us and to coach us and to tell us about your book.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed our talk.
That was so much fun to listen to Carol J. Post talk about what it's like to write for Love Inspired Suspense. And she gave us some wonderful tips for writing these stories and writing proposals. And I hope that you've been encouraged. I have been encouraged because I do want to try and send another one in next year. So thank you so much, Carol. And as she said, sometimes it means you have to be analytical and work a little bit harder on your research if you want to write for them. But it's worth it in the end. She has a wonderful relationship with Love Inspired Suspense as a publisher, and they send her contracts, So if that's what you feel your calling is, then you got to stay with it. Always writing, one step at a time going forward on your journey. And most of all, I thank you so much for listening today. Until next time, God bless.